turn to this issue of archaeology in the West Bank, which was fascinating to me because, like you mentioned, most of the West Bank is an archaeological site. But could you talk about how um, archaeology is used as a means to both adjudicate claims to territory, but also to like expand the footprint of settlements? Because, like when we talk about Judea and Samaria, you're right. Like, yeah, like that is the historical homeland of Jewish people in the Old Testament, but it's also been home to like many other layers of human history and culture. And like literally in archaeology, there is the clearing away of like the strata of each individual era. Could you talk about like how archaeology is used by Israeli authorities to not just, like I said, adjudicate claims of territorial disputes, but like also to like literally erase the history of other peoples in this land?
Yeah, it's really fascinating, and like when you think about it for 2 seconds, you realize why like archaeology has been totally central to Zionism from the earliest days, from well before 1948. So basically, like there's this great scholar at Columbia, Professor Nadia Abu El Haj, who God, I don't know if she's going to leave Columbia, but she wrote this great book called Facts on the Ground, which basically like the thesis is that Israel, the state, Israel, the idea, and Israel, the culture, all sort of were developing in a mutually constitutive fashion, and it was archaeology that was like allowing it to happen. So basically, you had from well before the Jews were there. Actually, the British were during the mandatory period were sending archaeologists in to go find evidence of the Old Testament. And it's very easy to pick up a pottery shard and go, "Oh my gosh, this is from ancient Israel," And so they were going around actually renaming Ottoman or Arab like villages based on things in the Old Testament, and they were just sort of like creating a new epistemology of the place that was like a biblical place instead of just a land. And so then when the Zionists actually come in the early 20th century, they have this groundwork already, and they send archaeologists out, and they literally just start like digging up sites. And I should say, a lot of it is legitimate. Like they're absolutely finding things that are from the Old Testament. The problem, like you said, Will, is there's lots of civilizations that have been there, and if you just go by an arbitrarily picked like sliver of history, the whole world order falls apart pretty quickly. But in this case, they could trump all of it because it was from the Bible. And so basically, what they do is they have these archaeologists going around turning the Bible into like the history textbook of Israel. And so then once Israel is actually formed in 1948, like archaeology becomes I think Al Hajj calls it like the national hobby. It's taught in schools. It's just everywhere you look. It's not like a little side practice like it is here. It's really central to the Israeli identity. So what happens in 1967 basically is Israel occupies Gaza and the West Bank, and these archaeologists in Israel, I think, not even necessarily from an ideological perspective, just because it's what they do, they just hopped right over the border and continued doing what they were doing, which is finding remains and calling it evidence of ancient Israel. And so, the point is like they let the genie out of the bottle, right? Like when you start letting archaeologists call things Israel because you're finding little Jewish, I keep saying pottery shards, but they're finding all sorts of things. Then like why wouldn't they keep doing it in the West Bank? By the way, they're doing it now in Lebanon and in Syria. There's this crazy story about like amateur archaeologist who like recruited a couple IDF soldiers to like go with him on a mission into I forget exactly where in Lebanon, and they all got killed by Hezbollah fighters. And just because this again, an amateur archaeologist was like convinced he was going to go find something.
Just for like in your piece about this, the thing I found fascinating was like much of this archaeology could be legitimate in that they are discovering like evidence of the early Jewish culture or existence in the land of Israel or like the Levant. But the thing is, like, that was thousands and thousands of years ago, and like many other peoples and civilizations have also called this piece of
Yeah.
this area of the world home. And you describe how like in legitimate archaeology, like you clear from the topsoil down, and what you find is like each layer of history, and you have to be very careful about like not confusing one for the other to like accurately date something. But you describe how like these sort of the amateur hobbyist archaeologists use bulldozers at these excavation sites, where they literally just scrape away everything above what they think or want to claim as being ancient Israel.
Those are the real archaeologists who are
Oh,
doing
okay.
that,
Okay.
not the amateurs. I mean,
So this is
listen,
indie.
yeah. I've talked to a lot of Israeli archaeologists, and there's actually like there is a group inside of Israel called Emek Shave, which is Israeli archaeologists who fight against the weaponization of archaeology. So like there are some people who are sort of against it, but like by and large, the academy, the archaeology academy in Israel, it's made up of people who just turn a blind eye to what's happening in the West Bank, and those who are actually digging in the West Bank. And to your point, like they have just absolutely no regard for the actual remains. They're just digging for, the Jewish stuff. And like in Sebastia, I forget how many. I want to say like there's evidence of 15 different civilizations, and I think the Israelites are like third or fourth on the list. So like pretty good. Like the Samaritans were there before them. Like there were other groups there before them, and the Israeli archaeologists there, when they come into the town, and by the way, they're currently trying to turn it into a sort of Disney, biblical Disneyland. When they come in, like you hear one story, like you just hear a linear narrative of it being Jewish. And what's interesting actually is that the Palestinians in Sebastia really own the fact that it's there have been all these different civilizations that have come through, including a Jewish one. And what they will say is the ancient Jews that were in Sebastia, some of them left, and some of them, we are descendants of them. They converted at some point. So like they are really owning the all the different civilizations that have been there, but the actual archaeological practices themselves that they're using are just having no respect whatsoever for the practice, and just digging for the Jewish stuff, and that's the story right there.
Just binning everything else.
Yeah.
If it's like Persian or a different civilization or culture.
Yeah.
I just wanted to tie this real quickly into a classic Chapo episode, because we saw this very directly when we went to CPAC and saw the Israeli ambassador presenting, as Felix called them, the Jewish Infinity Stones.
This was one of the most boring speeches I have ever seen in my fucking life.
But it is this project of presenting these like handful of ancient coins, of being like, and see, this is physical evidence that we have been here forever and we have the eternal right to this land, blah, blah, blah.